Welcome once again to the Magnum Rewatch podcast. My name is Graham.
And I'm Kathleen.
We're from LoadingReadyRun.com, where we do all manner of other funny stuff, but today we are taking you into the world of Magnum PI. This week's episode is a day late because I am sick, as you may be able to tell from my slightly nasally voice.
Hello, listeners. This is your editor speaking. We are experiencing some minor mucus-based delays. Please sit tight. There may be some turbulence. I mean, that's the best joke I can have. I don't want to make too many jokes at the expense of your illness.
My illness will not stop us from the podcast, however, as we leap in, fists windmilling, into this rip-roaring episode 12, Thicker Than Blood, which starts with some good news.
Dun 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 dun.
That's not quite the music, but it's closer.
In my head, it sounds extremely close.
Mike Post has composed a theme song for Magnum PI, and this is the first episode to use it. I think earlier we said that the DVDs were different or something. That was incorrect. This is the first episode to use the new and classic, and for the rest of the series, Magnum PI theme song.
The one that you all think of when I say Magnum PI.
The one that's been appearing as underscore for the last several episodes.
Yes.
In different action sequences. Mike Post is a go-to for television music, and not just of this era.
He's just like a TV theme guy. If you're not sure of what we're talking about, let's just actually put in a few seconds of the new theme, maybe even a few seconds of the old theme, and you can see the difference here. When the new one is much more exciting and much more action-oriented. It's just generally better.
All right, so the Ian Freebairn Smith theme. And now, the Mike Post theme. Gets you going.
This is a theme that says, man, I am an exciting action show with mustaches and Ferraris and occasionally men being punched.
That happens a lot in this episode, actually.
Yeah, I feel that this episode delivers on all three counts.
Can I give you just a list of other notable TV themes that Mike Post has been responsible for?
Sure, why not?
All right. The A-Team. Blossom.
Don't know about the future, that's anybody's guess. Ain't no good reason for getting all depressed. Fire up your...
Chips. Doogie Howser, MD. the greatest American hero. News Radio, which must be one of the most recent ones. Quantum Leap. Stingray.
Wait, Stingray?
Yeah, Stingray. It's a guy named Ray. He drove a Stingray.
Oh.
Nick Mancuso was in it. It's a Stephen J. Cannell production. Anyway, he also did Law and Order. And others. Like, there's so many of them. There's so many that Pete Townsend wrote a song called Mike Post Theme that alluded to the just how, I mean, I'm reading from Wikipedia here, that alluded to the ubiquity of Post's work in television music.
If you want a touchstone for the impact of Mike Post on your life, just think of it this way. If it wasn't for Mike Post, they would not be able to play the A-Team theme on Top Gear and Mythbusters when they are about to get up to something dumb.
How good do you have to be the go-to composer for Donald Belisario, Stephen J. Cannell, and Dick Wolf?
I mean, probably pretty easy to work with.
What I don't understand is that he did the theme song for Rockford Files before this, and that he wasn't like their first. Maybe he was their first choice. Maybe they couldn't get him right away. I feel like we're ragging.
He might have been busy.
That's true. I feel like maybe we're ragging on Ian Freeburn Smith a lot, but I just love this theme song so much.
This theme song is an undeniable classic, much like Magnum PI.
Happy to have you aboard, Mike Post. Speaking of climbing aboard, the episode opens on the shot of a boat. A really bad day for night swapped shot of a boat. If you recall from the previous episode where we explained what a day for night is, this is really clearly just a shot of a merchant tanker during the day that's been very heavily masked in blue and made dark.
Now, in defense of the producers here, there's not that many ways to get a shot of a boat on the open ocean at night and have it show up at all that don't cost a fuck ton of money.
Particularly when the boat is running dark.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting that it would be running dark.
These people seem to be up to no good.
And yet, here we see TC's helicopter flying towards them. He's checking his fuel gauge and realizes he's almost empty and sort of mutters to himself that Joey better not be messing around on him. The guys in the boat hear the helicopter and they go, okay, he's coming. Turn on the lights. So then the boat goes bright. Floodlights turn on. TC can see the boat and lands on it. Why is TC landing on a merchant tanker in the middle of the night at the far limit of his fuel range?
Mysteries abound, and they will not readily be answered. But he does come aboard, and they say, all right, well, we'll refuel you, but we only have manual pumps, so it's going to take 30 to 40 minutes. And TC is very upset, because in 30 to 40 minutes, it'll be daylight, and the Coast Guard will be able to see him. And it's like, what is going on?
Why would the Coast... Yeah,
I thought TC was on the up and up.
Why would the Coast Guard care? And these guys, the guys on the boat, they seem, I think you described it, Kathleen, as shady, but non-threatening.
Yeah, like, they're all, like, middle-aged guys with, like, beer guts and stuff like that.
You sort of get the impression that they're, like, up to no good, but you're not worried that they're going to, like, hurt TC at all, or that they harbor any ill will necessarily. They're just sort of like, hey, what's up? How's it going? You can hang around here until tomorrow night if you want. Or you can leave and maybe the Coast Guard will see you. Who knows? Whatever. How's it going? They're just cash.
Yeah, they're super cash. Yeah, they're not like tripping any like Russian gangster kind of warning bells. But they look like the kind of shady guys who might, run a news agents where, they sell some alcohol out the back after the bars close on weekends, that kind of thing.
TC goes below decks to find the Joey that he mentioned earlier.
What, the baby kangaroo?
No. It's a guy named Joey,
who
apparently knows him, and TC knows who Joey is. And before any familiarities can be assessed, TC checks to make sure he's clean. He just says, "Are you clean?" And Joey rolls up his sleeves and is like, look, nothing fresh. These are old," showing off injection track marks. TC grabs a match, holds it up to his eyes to check for dilation.
Joey is clearly into the big H. That's what they call heroin on the street, and I know because I'm so street. I have no idea, actually. But yeah, it's very obvious here that Joey is a heroin addict, or at least a recovering heroin addict, is what he tells TC, at least.
Mm-hmm. Once satisfied that Joey is clean, TC's like, okay, let's go. I promise I get you home. Let's go. They get back in TC's chopper, his Hughes 500D, take off and head back into the islands. As soon as they're gone, the captain and the other guy look at the map and they're like, so how far can he actually get on the fuel we gave him? And he can only get to Oahu. That's the closest island to where the boat is. It's the only place they can get. He can't get to the big island. And he's like, okay, how long will it take? It'll take about 3 hours. Okay, wait for an hour and then call in an SOS at this location.
And you can
in TC's flight path.
Yeah, they can clearly see that what they're going to do is call in an SOS to the Coast Guard. So they will go and look for a non-existent ship right in the area that TC is flying through. Like it's so obviously drawn. So I feel like I have to really make it clear because they have a black line for TC's flight flight path, and then you see them laboriously drawing a big red X on it. Like, there is no myth here about what is going on. So you're like, TC's being set up. This is going badly. Oh no.
In the helicopter, Joey explains that after Saigon fell, Joey ran to Thailand and was selling morphine that presumably he'd stolen from the military. TC doesn't want to hear this. He's like, don't tell me any of this. The less I know, the better. I don't want to hear about it. After I get you back to the island, you and I are done. If you want to turn yourself in and face the music, maybe we can be friends. But if you don't want to do that, which, by the way, Joey makes it very clear he does not want to do that, then TC doesn't want anything to do with Joey once this is finished.
I mean, and that's fair, because Joey is like, I'm clean, but Joey is not acting like he's very clean. Joey is kind of acting weird this whole trip.
Yeah, he threatens to jump out of the helicopter multiple times. He's clearly taking advantage of TC feeling like he owes him for some reason. Not really sure why.
Yet.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Sorry.
I'm trying not to give it all away.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to hear that there is more information to be revealed later in the episode.
Yeah, but it's the episode is taking its time to dole the information out.
Yeah, but this is a rewatch podcast. People are listening to this because they are too busy. This is for high-powered executives on the treadmill and the plane flying across the world. For those jet-setting CEOs that want to watch Magnum but can't. And I know that they are relying on us, and they don't have time for a slow drip of information.
If any of those jet-setting CEOs would like to contribute to our Patreon, that'd be great. We cut to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard hears the SOS for a ship that says they've got X number of crew, so many passengers, they're going down fast. Coast Guard scrambles their plane and their search and rescue helicopter, and also makes a point to notify the local Marines because maybe the Coast Guard will need backup for this.
Yeah, I mean, if there's that many people, right?
Mm-hmm. We go back to TC's helicopter. It's now daylight.
Yeah, bright daylight.
They're getting even closer to the island. TC pulls up his binoculars, and we get a really, really nice flyby shot of a Coast Guard C-130.
Oh, yeah.
It was a really nice shot. Shots. Yeah. And he's like, oh, that's bad. Joey says, do you think that they've spotted us? And TC says, yeah, pretty sure they've spotted us.
Well, I don't know, Joey. We're the only other thing in the air in this area. What do you think?
Well, also there's a Coast Guard helicopter heading for an intercept with them.
Yes.
The Coast Guard helicopter pulls up beside TC, who quite smartly does a sort of a, points at his headset and does like the it's dead indicator thing. And the guy in the Coast Guard helicopter's like, okay, well, follow us. We're going over there. And TC's like, yep, sure thing, buddy. Happy to help. Thumbs up, okay sign, that whole thing.
So you might be wondering why TC is like trying to be evasive with the Coast Guard. TC is not stupid. And neither is the Coast Guard. You see two guys back at Coast Guard HQ when they get the call that somebody has spotted a helicopter right in the area. They're like, why is somebody flying out this early? That's usually related to suspicious and criminal activity. So they have an interest in checking TC, but they're not like out to get him or anything.
And indeed, TC's happy to just sort of fly along with him for a little while until they get over the island. And then TC says to Joey, I hope you're ready for this, because it's go time. Peels off from the other helicopter and just dives down into this valley. How many TV shows of this era had helicopter chases?
Probably none?
This is pretty sweet.
I mean, when did this air?
This episode aired February 26th, 1981.
I had not even remotely been born yet, so I wasn't really around to check.
I'm going to say not many.
Okay,
I'm going out on a limb.
A fair guess.
Yeah. TC takes the chopper down real low, almost on the ground. Joey jumps out. TC's like, I never want to see you again. TC takes off and he's like, okay, let's see how good you can fly. Sort of muttering to himself because he's like, he feels that he can outmaneuver the Coast Guard helicopter, and he probably can. So he takes off, and he's just about ready to bolt when there's a Marine helicopter there.
Yeah, an
right
actual,
in front of him.
Military combat helicopter.
Yeah, like a Cobra or something.
He's like, "Aw, man, that's not fair." That's the last we see of TC until the next time we see him in the episode, I guess. But
I was going to say, I was like, ever? What? Magnum.
TC goes the way of Moki.
No. Magnum wakes up. This is the first time we've seen Magnum. This was like 15 minutes of no other characters than TC.
Yeah.
Magnum wakes up with a tape recorder on the side of his bed, or on the other pillow that he's not using. and he plays it, and it's a recording from Sarah,
Who we'd never met before.
Never met before, who obviously was there the night before.
For a tryst.
Mm-hmm.
A romantic liaison.
We get another fourth wall break as Magnum gives a withering look to the camera that she's left him a tape recorder. We cut to him swimming as we listen to some of her tape recording, and he gives us some narration background on Sarah. They have an agreement, basically. She shows up just around the time when he starts missing her, and then she'll take off again with as little warning as she arrived.
She's a literary agent, so presumably she's there to do stuff for Robin Masters, I guess.
Well, she flies all around the world. She's buying manuscripts and encouraging authors and things like that.
But I presume that's what brings her to Robin's Nest and how Magnum met her.
I guess, yeah. And he says that normally he's totally cool with that arrangement, but that this time he wasn't ready for her to leave yet.
Oh, see, Magnum ends up being with a lot of ladies in this show, or at least trying to. You never get quite the feeling that he's a gigantic, like, Captain Kirk level cad. Like, you get the feeling that he might actually get attached to some of these people, which is nice.
Yeah, which is why it bums me out that it really felt like this was going to start going somewhere with some sort of development in that regard.
Wait, this doesn't go anywhere?
No, you never hear about Sarah again.
Oh, wow.
Ever.
Oh, I thought we were going to meet her at some point.
No, right? Like, the narration from Magnum is like this serious thing and how they had something going on and it was different this time, but no, just nothing.
Really? They completely dropped this plot thread?
Yeah.
Oh, it really seems like they're setting something up. I guess it didn't score well with the core audience of housewives and gay men. No, he can't be attached, then he can't be mine. Also, Sarah sounded like a massive bee from this tape recording. It's really like sanctimonious and like, now Magnum, dear, do this. And it's like, ugh.
Well, Sarah's also a big health nut and has left him the recipe for a smoothie kind of health drink or whatever that Magnum is to make. And she's doing like, okay, now do this. I'll wait. And it's...
Yeah, it just sounds really irritating.
He's mixing into the blender flat beer and tomato juice.
Okay, that's a thing.
And then 3 raw eggs.
That's gross.
Which Magnum thinks that's disgusting.
Also salmonella, geez. How much of a health nut can you be?
Well, if you wash the outside of the eggshells, it's...
Who washes their eggs?
People who are worried about salmonella when they're eating raw eggs.
I bet Magnum didn't wash his eggs.
Probably not. And there's some other stuff in the blender already. It looks like a powder or something. But then he blends it, and it's blue.
Oh, it's so gross looking.
It's like Beru Lars Blue Milk Blue. This drink belongs on Tatooine.
Yeah, no.
Why is it blue?
I don't know, because it's a health drink.
Why is it opaque blue?
It's more of a teal, really.
Sure, whatever. It still makes... It's got beer and tomato juice and eggs in it. How is it blue?
I mean, that's a mystery for the prop department to work out. I think they just want something that would look gross and undrinkable.
And indeed, Magnum does not drink it.
He takes one sip and he's like, blah. But also, like, Sarah really, like, sounds so irritating from this stupid voice memo. The worst. The worst lady. Maybe I'm actually fine that they dropped this plot line. I don't want to meet this lady.
Rick bursts in, being hotly pursued by Zeus and Apollo. Gets pretty annoyed with Magnum that his phone was off the hook, because he's been trying to get a hold of him all morning, because TC's in trouble.
Presumably Magnum took it off the hook for his liaison.
Well, he did say I didn't want to be disturbed.
Rawr.
So Magnum runs off to get ready, gives Rick the smoothie thing. Rick sort of looks around furtively, is like, well, Magnum's not here. I guess I'll just dip my finger in and take a taste of this weird blue concoction. That was actually, I'm going to dip another finger in. You know what? I'm just going to gulp this. And Rick just like slams this drink.
There you go. Does Rick have no taste? Or is Rick just into this kind of thing? Maybe Rick is also a health nut. Maybe he recognizes this.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? More importantly, who cares? What happens next, Graham?
Well, we cut to a weird little scene of Joey hiding in the brush where TC dropped him off.
Yeah, and then confirming what we pretty much already suspected based on his behavior. He is totally still doing heroin. Wait, do you do heroin? Do you do a heroin? What's the lingo here, Graham? I don't know my drugs.
Doing heroin.
Shooting a heroin?
He's shooting up into his leg.
Oh, he's shooting up. That's what you call it. Yeah, but he's doing it into his leg because that's trixier, I guess.
Well, TC wouldn't have been able to see it unless he looked for it, which you'd think TC would have thought to do, but whatever. If Joey was that hard onto it as he thought he was. While Joey's shooting up, he's also like sobbing to himself, I'm sorry, TC, I'm sorry, which is it's a very strange scene. We then cut to Rick and Magnum arriving at the Coast Guard where TC is being held, and they have an exchange outside the Coast Guard. Magnum and Rick are like, "Hey, we're here to help TC. What's wrong?" And TC just basically yells at them like, "I don't want your help. You stay out of my lives. You know, it'd be better off without you." In the pre-title scene, there's some lines actually that aren't in this scene. Like the pre-title, the like This Week on Magnum thing before the opening titles.
Mm-hmm.
There's some lines that aren't in this actual scene.
Yeah, in the pre-title scene, he's like, "I don't know these turkeys or whatever."
Like you're not my friends.
Yeah, that doesn't make it into this scene. I guess that there was kind of some ad-libbing on here going on the set.
Yeah. This is maybe a weird observation to make, but in this scene, TC is talking with more of a stereotypical black guy accent and with more lingo than he typically does.
Yeah, normally he's just like talks exactly the same way as Magnum and Rick do and everybody else does. You know, kind of the way that people do in real life. But here he's definitely playing up the like, "I don't know you suckers, get out of here, you ain't my brothers," etc., etc. And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, I guess maybe they're doing it to show that it's super out of character for TC.
I guess.
Maybe TC's playing at being a bad guy.
I would have felt very uncomfortable giving that reading direction.
Yeah, me too. We're going to give that a 0.25 on the That's Racist scale. So for you guys keeping up, that's now 3.75. That's racists for the first season of Magnum.
They take TC off to, well, the police, because the Coast Guard doesn't actually charge people. They just catch people and take them to the district attorney. And TC's made it clear that he plans to plead guilty to whatever it was that exactly happened, which even Magnum and Rick are not totally clear on at the moment.
Even TC doesn't seem totally clear on it, to be honest with you. He's just like, "I ain't talking." And it's like, what is going on? Why are you protecting this piece of shit?
They don't even know that there's a piece of shit to protect. They don't know anything.
No, but like that's what I'm wondering. Is like, TC, how is this drug addict that important to you? What happened here?
The Coast Guard invites Magnum and Rick inside. They say they've got real good coffee. And they're being awfully open with their info. I guess maybe they know Magnum? Maybe?
Maybe they recognize the Navy rings that Magnum and Rick are wearing?
Maybe, but they're being, they're just sort of like, well, here's all the information that we have. They talk about
It was a simpler
how
time, Graham.
Yeah, they talk about how they, they had the SOS, but then they spotted the helicopter and then did this thing, and he had a passenger, and the passenger was acting all squiffy, and TC landed, and the guy got away, and, that's how it is. And now TC's looking at 5 to 10 years in the pen. And Magnum,
because they suspect that what he was doing was his passenger was a drug smuggler, right? That's what they're suspecting. And
do they say that?
Yeah. That's why. Otherwise, why would he go to jail for 5 to 10 years for
sneaking a person into the country?
They don't have
That's illegal.
They don't have any proof about that.
Yeah, they do. They saw that he had a passenger in the thing, and then there wasn't a passenger when they caught him.
It's pretty heavily implied that they think that TC is connected to drug running, and Magnum's like, he wouldn't do that.
All right. I was also sick when we watched this episode, so I didn't pick up on any of this.
Okay, yeah. There's definitely, they're like, Magnum, that's why Magnum was like, what is going on? TC would never do that. He would never smuggle drugs in. This is nuts. Why is he just willing to just go up the river for this? What is happening here? So Magnum and Rick are like, all right, we got to get to the bottom of this.
He also asks the Coast Guard if they ever found the boat that the SOS called in from. The Coast Guard's like, no, we still have planes and choppers out there looking, but we couldn't even find anything, not even debris. And Magnum's like, maybe because there was no boat.
He said it just like that, too.
Yeah, he sounds exactly like Dr. Evil. It's weird.
Well, I think that's where they got the inspiration for Dr. Evil was
from
just
that
this
line reading.
This line reading in this very
Tom
classic
Selleck.
episode of
Yeah.
Magnum.
He didn't actually sound like that. That was me. To be clear.
Because we made it sound so convincing otherwise.
Joey has hitched a ride with some very friendly Hawaiian farmer to take him to the airport, but then Joey changes his mind and says he wants to go into town instead.
Oh, this bodes well.
That's the entire scene.
We just know that Joey is a complete louse and has told TC he's not on drugs anymore and is not on drugs anymore, and he's told TC he just wants to go home, and now he's not even going home. Joey, you sack of human misery.
Next, we see Magnum's naval friend, Lieutenant McReynolds, totally failing at flirting with people.
Just being the worst.
Like, real bad. Like, crapping on naval pilots.
Saying that they're useless.
When there's a naval pilot sitting on the other side of the girl he's trying to talk to.
How could he not notice that? I thought he's supposed to be in military intelligence. You'd think he'd have like a base sense of like, look around you, observe the world, notice
Military
things.
intelligence. That's an oxymoron. Aha, aha.
Well, it is-
Actually, we know people in literally we know people in military intelligence.
But I feel like that oxymoron may apply to McReynolds.
To this guy, it applies. Yeah.
But this is the second time we've seen McReynolds.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a recurring character.
Yeah, but the last time we saw him, Magnum was also trying to get information out of him. And McReynolds remembers this and is not having any of Magnum's advances.
Magnum butters him up real good, though.
Well, he compliments him and buys him a drink, and then McReynolds is like, nope. Nope's out of there. Because what Magnum wants is satellite photos from the satellite that orbits over top of Hawaii and takes pictures about every 4 hours. He knows he's not going to see TC on these satellite photos, but if he can see that there's no boat in the area that's supposedly put in this SOS call, it's extremely suspicious. And he can look out in the range that TC was flying and try to figure out what was around there and where TC might have been going to or coming from.
McReynolds is horrified that Magnum even knows the name of the satellite, which, by the way, is Cage 14. And Magnum's like, dude, I was in intelligence. I used to do your job. It's not that weird that I would know this. I'm not even asking for pictures of military stuff or anything. I could get this information from these other places, but it would take too long, and you'd have that. You could just call it up right now. So, hey, buddy? Huh?
McReynolds is like, nope,
Buddy?
nope. And then cut to...
Actually, wait. Before that, sorry. There's a really nice shot I wanted to call out here.
Okay.
This location, I'm not sure where this location is. It looks like a mall, but there's this really nice tracking shot where McReynolds is trying to get away from Magnum while Magnum follows him, and the camera's walking with both of them. And behind them is the edge of the balcony, and then across the street is Honolulu Beach. It's this really, really cool location shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at the end of the scene, it zooms in on a waterfall in this mall and cuts to the chemical bath in the Robin's Nest darkroom. Cool transition.
Yeah, it's a good transition.
The water to the water. Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out while McReynolds' mouth says no, I guess his heart says yes.
Fun fact, the first time that we saw Robin Masters / Higgins' darkroom in the pilot movie, that was actually shot on location.
So Robin's Nest really does have a dark room.
Or they made a set on site. This darkroom is on a soundstage.
Oh.
Just interesting behind the scenes. One thing I do like is that Magnum lets Higgins be really smarmy in this scene. Because Magnum's like, where do you think I got the picture? And Higgins is like, well, it's obviously taken by yourself from TC's helicopter using Robin Masters' camera. And
his 35 millimeter and blah, blah, blah.
Obviously. And Magnum's like, okay, sure.
Magnum doesn't correct him.
No, Magnum just lets him be right.
Yes.
Which he's wrong, but still.
Yeah. But more importantly, it has a picture of the ship that TC landed on. That is the picture that is being developed right now. However, it is pretty far out.
But Higgins has another picture that has the name of the ship, and he knows Magnum wants it. And so what is Magnum willing to give him? And Magnum's like, why do we have to have a swap meet every time I need something from you? And Higgins is like, because I don't like you. I don't like how you operate. I don't like how you take advantage of this. I don't like any of it. And I will take any advantage I can get, and I will press that advantage. Magnum's like, fine, I'll move out. Have everything. Just give me it. When do you want me to move? Sunday? How's Sunday?
Yeah, Magnum is like not putting up with this. And Higgins is just like, right?
He's like, okay, Sunday will work. I'll develop the picture now.
Yeah, Higgins is visibly taken aback by this. He's like, whoa, what is going on?
We cut to the Evelyn H, which is the name of the boat, as Higgins discovered. It's in dock. It's had its customs and excise investigation, and now all the longshoremen are going to unload the boat.
It's carrying rice.
Rick calls Magnum and lets him know that TC has indeed pled guilty. So sentencing is in a couple days, and his helicopter is due to be auctioned that same day.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, the process of justice. And Magnum is incensed that TC would do this. And it just strengthens his resolve. But how does Rick call Magnum, you ask? Why, there's a payphone at the dock.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Let's not worry about the logistics of that. I guess people would know payphones, or you could look up. I don't know. I guess people would actually take calls on payphones more often back in the day when you didn't have cell phones. Anyhow.
Magnum is so upset he goes full longshoreman.
Well, by full longshoreman, he takes off his Hawaiian shirt, just wears his undershirt, and then wraps a bandana around his head. That's full longshoreman.
And pretends to be a longshoreman.
Yeah, he joins the union, as he puts it.
He spends like 2 hours unloading the boat.
He rides a forklift poorly.
When lunch break finally rolls around, Magnum can sneak on board.
Yeah, he says he doesn't like working this job, so he decides to quit.
And because he's been in the Navy for so many years, he knows his way around ships. He says as he gets completely lost and ends up in the engine room, he gets spotted by a guy with massive bell-bottom jeans, but talks his way out of it. Says he's looking for the head, which is the bathroom. He's looking for the toilet to pee in, I would guess.
I mean, that's typically where you put pee. Not in a head. Not in a head. If you need to pee, don't just pull over some random person and be like, open wide. It's probably aggravated sexual assault, to be completely honest with you. But the head, that's where the pee goes on a ship. It's ship jargon. Sure. Graham, then what happens?
Magnum lockpicks his way into the captain's quarters, narrowly avoiding the captain and a man named Reynard.
He is French.
He starts poking around the captain's quarters and finds a map that has a dotted line between the location the boat was in the satellite photo and Oahu, with a red mark on it where the Coast Guard was searching, and the manifest where the ship has listed a crew member as lost at sea, which wouldn't necessarily be that weird, except that the crew member's name is Joseph Santino, and Magnum knows who that is.
Magnum's like,
Now everything falls into place.
I know exactly why TC was headed out here. And because he can see this logbook with the red X that's been really clumsily erased, he's like, they did set up TC. Interesting.
But then he gets seen and shot at and runs out of the ship. And he's being chased by the crew of the ship and calls at the longshoremen.
Yeah, I don't know what he calls.
He just yells to them, and the longshoremen look and see that he, who they now know is a member of the longshoremen union, is being chased by the crew of the ship. One of the longshoremen is like, lunch break's over, boys, and they all just go and have a fight.
I mean, the longshoremen, notoriously known for their fighting prowess and delight in fighting.
They're like, this crew of the ship's chasing one of our boys. Lunchtime's over. Time to go have a brawl.
Wait, which boy? Is it the boy that nobody had seen before?
Shh. The boy who sneaks away, takes off his bandana, and transforms back into Thomas Magnum, private investigator?
Yeah. Yeah, then he just sort of like hangs around and watches everything happen, which is funny.
Then we cut to a shot of a bunch of mopey children.
Oh, it's TC's baseball team, who we saw last time building a dog run.
In The Ugliest Dog in Hawaii.
Yeah. However,
now TC's there because he sold his van to make bail, and he's packing up his workshop and getting all sort of like, I don't need your sympathy. You don't need to be around here. I only just coached you a couple times. Get away from me. I'm a bad man.
He's being a mopey TC.
He is being very mopey. He eventually yells them into leaving. And then Magnum shows up and is like, okay, so you did it for Joey because he saved your life. So there we have it. Joey saved TC's life. He pulled him out of a flaming Cobra.
Yeah.
That's a kind of helicopter.
This is back in the Nam days, of course. TC says, that kid had no business being there. So obviously Joey was not cut out for Vietnam or the military life. And of course you have to remember that there was a draft for the Vietnam War. So it's very possible that somebody who was not suited at all to be in the military would have ended up on the front lines fighting. And Joey appears to be one of these very unfortunate people who probably has a really nasty case of PTSD and is self-medicating through heroin. Joey needs a lot of help.
What I like is that in trying to convince TC that Joey is not worth TC doing this to himself, Magnum says whatever guts Joey did have, he used them all up at once the time that he pulled you out of that helicopter. Like, he is not worth you ruining your life. Because TC is not only going to be sentenced to prison, he's not actually going to be at the sentencing. He is planning on skipping town. He is going to run to Alaska.
Or Mexico or somewhere. He says he's going down south, and I don't know if that's a literal or a... Maybe
oh, that's
true.
Australia. He tells the kids he's going to Alaska.
But the point being, TC's plan is to just become a fugitive.
Which is a stupid plan.
Yeah, it's a really dumb plan. And Magnum tells him it's a dumb plan, and he won't let him do it. And TC's like, all right, well, we're going to have to reenact our first meeting in Saigon if you think that I'm going to listen to you. And Magnum's like, okay, fine. And then they have a man scrap. Punches.
This is after TC tries to hand back the ring, the Navy ring.
Yeah.
And then then they have a sort of like the Roddy Piper fist fight in They Live. It's very like heavy breathing, big slappy punches,
rolling around on the floor, touching each other.
Rick running in ineffectually trying to break it
Yeah,
up.
just kind of getting knocked over and generally being in the way. Rick is a lot smaller than Magnum and TC.
Rick just says hey a lot.
Yeah,
He just
Rick's-
goes, hey, 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 hey,
It,
hey.
completely ineffectually.
It does nothing.
He's trying.
He answers the phone.
Yeah, the phone starts ringing, and Rick, so he answers it, and he's like, hello, Island Hoppers! As like, wham, bam, blah, blah, blah.
Just a second. TC, the phone. The phone. And then TC and Magnum like stop.
As they're about to like just clock each other.
And then they're like, okay, let's not fight anymore. And they both just collapse, completely gassed out. They're both just exhausted from this fight.
This is a trope in like writing. Spoilers in Persona 4, when you reach the top social link with Yosuke, you sit on the riverbank and you have the ultimate man bonding moment, which is you get into a scrap, I guess. I guess that's a spoiler. I mean, that game is really old. There's a statute of limitations there, but so maybe, is this a thing? Graham, have you ever had a scrap with any of your friends?
Not to that extent, no. The only times I've ever been in anything approaching a fight, it's been with people who were decidedly not my friend.
Okay, so this is what you're saying is perhaps not a realistic trope.
Well, not for me, but for some people, I'm sure the sort of steam blowing off fight might be. It's just not how I operate.
I mean, that's fair. That's probably why I like you.
Hooray.
If you've been in a friendly bro bonding scrap, why not let us know? Give us some feedback on Twitter or on the Loading Ready Run forums.
I believe it's technically termed a bro down.
If you've been in a bro down, please let me know which term you prefer.
Anyway, it's Joey on the phone. He just sort of mumbles incoherently and apologizes to TC and then drops the phone and staggers back into his like shitty hotel room.
And they're like, uh-oh. And now, here's the thing. We cut to a shot of them driving down there, and Magnum saying, one of Rick's friends at the phone company traced the call to a room on Hotel Street. And I'm like, oh, this crummy street that we've been to a million times before. Okay. However, I was like, wait, couldn't they just use star 69? And I was like,
No?
Graham, when was star 69 invented?
I didn't look that
No,
up.
no, I tried to look it up. I'm recounting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was like, Graham, when was star 69 invented? And you were like, I don't know, like...
I don't know, but I remember when it happened. So
Yeah.
it must have been after this episode.
Yeah, so I tried to look up when star 69 was invented, and the Wikipedia entry is basically no help. And boy, do you ever get a lot of results about head to toe cunnilingus action. So if you know the history of star 69, why not give us some feedback on our forum or perhaps on Twitter? I mean, to be fair, I only spent about 5 minutes looking for this information because it's not, I mean, remotely important in the context of the episode, but it's the kind of curious thing. But I guess it wasn't around in 1980.
No, it was not. I can't find when it was introduced. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, they're riding in the, because TC sold his van, they're riding in the Ferrari. The Ferrari's a 2-seater.
So Rick is kind of perched in the middle. This is unsafe.
He's perched on the center console, basically sort of his butt to Magnum and TC's shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't get pulled over. I guess it was a different era. Perhaps this is this is the different era count. So far we have 2 on this episode.
They find Joey's room. He is gone.
He is
he is
up.
out of it, mumbling, saying things about TC. They call the paramedics.
Wait, what is the term for being all up on the heroines?
Strung out?
Yeah, strung out. Okay, so he's super strung out.
You know more about drugs than you're letting on, I think.
I'm trying to be funny, Graham.
Okay. They call the paramedics, and while they show up real quick, by the way, and while the paramedics are
In that neighborhood, no kidding.
while they're doing stuff in the background to Joey, Magnum's just idly searching through Joey's stuff, including finding what they say is $100,000 worth of heroin.
Yeah, it is an enormous bag of heroin. It looks like a bag of icing sugar. I mean, that's probably what it is, but it's the size of a bag of icing sugar.
Yeah, it's real big. TC is justifiably upset
No kidding.
that he's been taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, TC's life is over. His company is gone. His reputation is gone. He's going to be he's going to be sentenced to federal prison. And for what? Joey wasn't
for
clean.
nothing.
Joey wasn't going to go home. There you go. He's mad.
But maybe they can still do something good. Because we cut to the 3 of them, the 3 of the guys, Magnum, Rick, and TC, sitting in a 4-door car with the guy from the Coast Guard captain. And they're watching the auction of TC's helicopter. And TC's really upset about having to watch his helicopter be sold.
I mean, no kidding.
The
right?
Coast Guard guy's like, well, if our theory is right about this, you'll get it back pretty quick. I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, and they say there's no harm in watching. It's a free country, right?
They watch the guy who buys TC's helicopter, and Magnum recognizes him as one of the guys on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So the auction ends. We see the guys who buy the helicopter take it into a nearby hangar and then start opening up all the compartments that are all rammed full
Of heroin. So much heroin.
So that thing about
a million drug.
That thing about how they were loading the helicopter up, or how they were refueling the helicopter with hand pumps, nuh-uh. This is why it took so long, because they were hiding $10 million worth of heroin inside it.
Plan then, obviously. Joey wants to get off the boat, so he probably is like, "Please, just let me out of here. I got a guy." And they concoct a plan. They're like, "Well, actually, this is perfect. This is super convenient. Sure, let him get his friend to pick him up. I mean, it's convenient because, he's an AWOL, like he's gone AWOL from the military, so he can't come in under regular channels. So he will, have to do a risky thing. And then while the friend's picking him up, we'll have the friend mule in a bunch of heroin for us. Then we'll call the Coast Guard on him. He'll clam up to protect his friend. Then we will buy the helicopter at auction that no one thought to search, even though they suspect that TC has been smuggling some sort of contraband or something weird into the country. And then we'll get all our heroin back. This is a stupid plan.
And it worked perfectly.
I don't see how this would work even in 1980.
The plan
They had invented drug sniffing dogs then.
The plan worked perfectly.
I don't know about Star 69, but I feel like drug sniffing dogs were a thing. Why wouldn't they search his helicopter for contraband?
The only manner in which the plan did not work perfectly is that the building is now surrounded by federal agents.
And Magnum and TC and Rick.
Yeah, they just pull in on the Ferrari just to have additional fist fights, I guess. TC beats the crap out of Reynard.
Oh yeah, like TC goes to town. Magnum has to pull him off, but fair.
Yeah, but
this guy did try to ruin his life.
But the feds catch them. They presumably do some sort of magic to not let TC be sentenced, and everything's fine.
Yeah, the whole thing is hand waved away. And there's no murders without consequences, but there's definitely
it's not completely hand waved away, because we then cut to TC and all of his kids helping Magnum move out, because of course
right.
that's happening, and Magnum antagonizes TC a bit. TC threatens to hit him, and Magnum's like, oh, you can't hit me now. I'll charge you with assault, and your probation doesn't allow it. You'll go to prison. So TC is actually on probation.
I mean, he's probably on probation for
sneaking a person into the country?
Well, I mean, the person he snuck into the country was an American citizen, but
who is wanted for desertion.
Yeah. Wait, what is the penalty for desertion? It's actually pretty bad.
They look down upon that in America.
A little bit. I'll actually read you what the penalty for desertion is.
I would like to know that.
Desertion is where you are in the military. So you go AWOL, which is away without ordered leave. Or you just piss off. The military doesn't like you doing that. The deal with the military is you have to be where they tell you to be when they tell you to be. Now, the thing is, though, most of the time you don't actually get into very much trouble. You can be court-martialed for going AWOL or deserting, but typically people don't. If you do piss off from the military, you can get a dishonorable discharge, you can forfeit all your pay and allowances, or you could be reduced to the lowest enlisted grade, or you can be confined for 2 years. But if you're on guard or on watch duty and then you leave your post without authorization, but without sort of intention to abandon your post, maybe you just go to take a massive gnarly poo and you're gone for 20 minutes, you could be confined for up to 3 months, or you could forfeit 2/3 of your pay for 3 months. However, this is Joey's case. A member deserted during the time of war, or a member deserted with an intent to avoid hazardous duty or to shirk other important service, you can get a dishonorable discharge. You can forfeit all of your pay allowance, or you can be confined for up to 5 years. And, like I said, time of war, that changed to death or such other punishment, such as life in prison or a court-martial that may direct. I think what Joey is probably going to get is probably that confinement for 5 years thing, because they don't typically put you to death anymore for desertion.
Not in 1981, I would hope.
No.
But Joey's pretty convinced that he wouldn't last in prison. So that's why he's really worried about this whole thing.
Well, I mean, Joey's probably going to prison now because they had to phone the paramedics to, take him to the hospital. And so after that, they're probably going to arrest him.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's not wrapped up. We can assume he goes to jail.
Good for Joey. Maybe he gets clean there. Maybe he gets stabbed. Who knows? I don't think we ever see Joey again. Do we, Graham?
No.
Joey goes the way of Moki. He does a Moki.
So Higgins comes in as
right, the end of the episode.
Higgins comes in as Rick and TC take the rest of his stuff out, and Higgins is like, "So I heard about TC." Magnum's like, "Yeah." And Higgins is like, "I assume that's why you needed that information." Magnum's like, "Yeah, that's why." Higgins is like, "Okay, well, before you can move out, of course, I'll need to do an inventory." Magnum's like, "Of what?" He's like, "Well, of the linens, of guest house items." And Magnum's like, "I'm not going to steal from you, Higgins." And Higgins is like, "Well, I'm the responsible for all of this. I have to make sure that I do this inventory." And Higgins is like, Magnum's like, "Fine, do the inventory." Higgins is like, "I'm afraid I can't today. I have something other business." Magnum's like, "What?" He's like, "Yes, I'll have to do it later." And Magnum's like, No. He says, "You're not hanging this thing over me like the sword of Damocles. You're either doing this today or I'm not leaving." And Higgins is like, "Well, I guess that's that then," or whatever. I can't recall exactly what his line is, but basically Higgins is like, "Well, I guess you're not leaving then."
Yeah, basically Higgins has had a repenting moment where he realizes it would be poor form to use Magnum's affection for his friend as a way to kick him out, because Magnum was only doing what was right and saving his friend from going to jail.
And Higgins is a military guy.
Yeah, Higgins understands.
Yeah, I think Higgins feels that Magnum was doing the noble thing, and he doesn't want to punish him for that.
Even Higgins respects the bro code, Graham.
I think Higgins also likes their stupid back and forths.
Oh, yeah, it definitely gives him something to do. I think you're definitely getting that opinion. Also, I mean, Magnum's also helped Higgins on a couple occasions, like that time where he saved Higgins' life and the life of the general. Remember that?
I do remember that, yes.
Mere weeks ago?
Yes, it's true. And that's where the episode ends.
But with Magnum
looking
dead at the camera.
That's where it ends.
No, he looks...
No, the episode ends right there with Higgins. Higgins leaves the room, and then it cuts to credits. Nothing else happens.
No, you forgot the...
I haven't forgotten anything. Nothing happens.
He puts on these Groucho Marx glasses.
No, he doesn't.
And then he stares directly at the camera.
No, he doesn't.
For a long time.
No, because if he did that, that would really undercut a very, very good episode and a really touching scene.
But that's what happens, Graham.
No, it's not. He doesn't put on a set of Groucho Marx glasses with a giant comedy nose and turn around and stare directly at the camera. Why would he do that? Why would that be how this episode ends?
Yeah, I mean, why would
that be how this episode ends?
Why would the director possibly think that was a good idea?
You're
right.
Know.
That's not what happens at all.
That's why it doesn't happen.
Right.
Oh.
In case you haven't gathered, that's what happens at the end.
That's exactly what happens. Why? Why does that happen?
Because we almost had a feels moment, Graham, and this is a show about manly men who punch each other when they need to get their feels out, and you can't have a feels moment. So you've got to...
If you want to undercut a feels moment, why you shouldn't do it with lol random.
I mean, this might be the world's first occurrence of lol random.
It might be. Very strange.
Once again, Magnum PI trailblazing show.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that is actually the end of the episode.
That was a good episode. Apart from that very ending point.
I actually really liked this episode. There was no B plot, and the main plot was actually much simpler than many other episodes we've seen.
We got some really good character moments out of it.
Yeah, the plot, the actual plot motivation seemed kind of ridiculous to me. I feel like that plan would never work in real life, not even in the it was a different time 1980s where you can go into an airport with a gun, right?
Really, the only thing that doesn't make sense, and it's a massive thing that you pointed out, is they didn't catch Joey. Had they caught Joey, they obviously would have searched his stuff and found out that he had a ton of drugs, and then they obviously would have searched TC's helicopter. They had no way of knowing that Joey wouldn't be caught. Even if what actually happened, and they caught just TC in his helicopter, you would still search the helicopter. You wouldn't be like, oh, well, there was another person in the helicopter, so it must have been human trafficking and obviously not drugs, so we're just not going to bother searching your helicopter.
Well, I mean, yeah,
it's madness.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's a really cool idea. The plan sounds really, really cool. We'll get
until
him
you
caught,
think about it for more than 30 seconds.
Then we'll buy the helicopter at the police auction, and then it'll have all this stuff in it, except
that's ludicrous.
It's madness.
Okay, so I will give this I'll give this episode a 5.0 for logic and plausibility, but I'll give it a 10 for its character moments and sort of getting to know TC and even getting to know Higgins a bit and stuff like that. I thought it was a really good episode just from a character point of view.
You know what would have been a lot easier?
What?
not calling the Coast Guard on TC, letting him successfully get back to the island, and then after your boat docks, just going to find island hoppers and being like, I have a gun, stand over there while we pull this heroin out of your helicopter.
Yeah, no kidding, eh?
That would have been way simpler. Hey, everybody. Our ability to do this podcast is brought to you by you, the listeners at home, who sponsor our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. It doesn't just support this podcast, but many other podcasts and videos and all sorts of fun stuff that we do. And we really appreciate it if you check that out. If you are new to the podcast, check us out at loadingreadyrun.com. See some of that other stuff that we do. And leave us a rating or whatever on iTunes if you're listening on iTunes. And tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends who like Magnum or TV or weird ephemera or trivia or just engaging podcasts. Oh, I forgot to give you an overall rating for this episode. 7.5. We'll average the 2.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye. I think what's the most important thing for the sign-off this week is how many drug references we can get in there. Graham, I'm a guy from the 80s, and I'm potted up on the heroines. I'm shooting the needlemans.
No. Are you doing an entire heroin?
I am doing a drug. I am getting on the blue ferry. Wait,
I knew a guy who did a heroin once, and he died.
I mean, maybe that's what happens to Joey. Maybe we never see him again because he dies.
No one cares. He wasn't that interesting of a character.
No. Don't do drugs, kids. You'll end up like that guy.
Hulk Hogan says winners don't do drugs.
Well, I don't know if Hulk Hogan's a very good role model these days. He was in a sex tape.
I didn't want to know about that.
How did you not know about that?
No, I just pretend not to know.
Oh, like the end of the episode.
Is he wearing Groucho Marx glasses?
In the sex tape?
Yeah.
I honestly haven't seen it.
I don't want to.